For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Welcome to Let's Get To, the baseball show from the fans' perspective.
And welcome to Let's Get To. I'm your host, James Christopher, and it is a big episode for a fun week. I think everybody's mood's getting a little bit better with the vaccine starting to really come out. I know we had records a couple of days ago on just how many shots we're getting into arms. That's a real shot in the arm for the morale of the country. You got to stay with me, even though the jokes might be bad in the opening, because again, big week. First of all, I'm on spring break. Now, if I were Scotty or Billy from Before the Pitch, I imagine that the spring break episode would be much more exciting with, Florida and body shots and things like that. But I'm an old man, and so I'm going to be spending spring break at the Carter Creek Winery with my bride. Tomorrow, March 16th, it's also my birthday, my 45th birthday. And, I'm not one of those guys, I guess, that gets very wrapped up in the depressing part of the birthday. My wife has gone all out, though. It's really been a full-on birthday week with presents every day, starting, on the 12th of March and apparently continuing until the night of the 17th. So it's very cool. Again, I'm not somebody that's very negative when it comes to his birthday. 45 is what I'm turning, which is, I guess, cool because now I can ironically wear my age on a hat and not be ironic about it, I guess. But I'm a pretty lucky guy. I can look back on the 45 years and I've had a lot of paths. I, was a soldier, I think pretty good at that for 7 years. And then I made films for 12 years and did, not all my goals accomplished, but came close to a lot of them and built a lot of lasting friendships and learned a lot about myself and made a lot of wonderful memories. And we made a couple of movies that people feel like is like some of their favorite movies of all time. And anytime you can do that, that's special. I've been a teacher for a really long time and now I'm teaching film in an environment that I love at St. Michael's Catholic Academy, Go Crusaders, and then running the film festival, and then this show. And, the show has really exceeded all of what my expectations were. I wanted to do something different in this field, this sort of sports media thing. I think we did that, and I think we've created something unique and positive in the ecosystem. And, baseball's always been a part of my life. I'll put some photos up of when I was a little kid and then when I played in high school. And I've always loved the game and mostly the Astros because it's what I knew. And as I've gotten older and learned so much more about the other sports that were the other forms of baseball out there, I kind of think my love for the game has actually grown, experiencing minor league baseball and the collegiate summer leagues and that kind of thing. And then, of course, Wednesday is St. Patrick's Day. And I remember I had a birthday party, about 10 years ago now or something. And I kind of roasted my mom a little bit because, a little bit more try. I could have been born on St. Patrick's Day, which goes to show you that I know nothing about childbirth. Shocking. But yeah, St. Patrick's Day has always been a special day in my family. And to honor that, I will remove the 45 cap. You get to see some hat hair. Happy birthday to me. And I'm going to throw on, I've got a Chicago Dogs St. Patrick's Day ball cap, the Chicago Dogs, great team. We were out there in 2019, just great people all in all. And then I'm wearing a shirt from the Irish American Baseball Society that says top of the inning to you. St. Patrick's Day has always been a very big deal in my house. I was born and raised, half Irish, half Polish. Those of you who know my real last name know why I go by James Christopher on the show. D-Z-I-E, D-Z-I-C, I pronounce it Smith. But my mom is from an Irish Catholic family, and that identity had always been very strong with us. Big family. They had 9 children, my mom was one of 9 who lived. They had a 10th sibling that didn't live very long. But being Irish has always been part of our identity. St. Patrick's Day, always a big deal. A lot of the grandkids from those 9, I guess the children of those 9, have even made the trip to Ireland. A few years ago, Jessica and my brother Dennis and I, along with my favorite cousins, Bridget, Aaron, and Colleen, all had an amazing trip to Cork, which is where our family's from. So it's always been something that's been present, that's been a big part of what our identity has been as a family. I'm obviously very proud of my Polish heritage as well. Andy Tom Chesson, who is so big on this show, is my cousin, and the Polish community in Texas is huge, centered around Bremond, Texas. So it's obviously something I'm proud of. We just don't have a whole day. There's no like Saint Stanislaus. I think he's Polish, right? But St. Patrick's Day has always been a big deal. And I was thinking about, how to recognize that in the opening of the show. And I remember right before Joe Biden was sworn in, he was talking about James Joyce and Irish poets, and how Irish poets are just the best. And it's hard to disagree with that assessment from the president. But I was thinking about, and I don't even know if this is a real poem or not, or a limerick, I don't know what you would call it. But it was one my mother taught me as a child. And I have a big mouth, and I chose to share it at school, and it got me sent home from, I think, St. Charles Elementary School in Houston, Texas. And it goes something like this. Ireland was Ireland when England was a pup. Ireland will be Ireland when England's time is up. I am a Roman Catholic, and I go to weekly mass, so all you English sons of bitches can kiss my Irish ass. Again, don't know if it's real or not. I hope Astros fans UK isn't listening. You know what? I hope you are listening and watching, George. That one's for you on the holiest day of the year. Again, great show for you today. We're going to be talking a lot about baseball and the Irish, past and present. Andy Tom Chesson is here. Scott McEntire is bringing the very first McEntire Mule to the show. So much more, so stay with us.
Who's on first? The Let's Get To Local 9, brought to you by Zoomer Sport.
So normally on this section of Let's Get To, the Who's on First segment, we bring you a GM from a minor league team. Well, we're going to bring you the man, or one of the men, one of the people behind the baseball movement in Ireland, from Baseball Ireland, Mr. Tom Kelley. How's it going, Tom?
It's going really good. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks for jumping on. So before we kind of get into what Baseball Ireland is and everything that you guys are doing for youth baseball and softball and adult baseball, how did you yourself get into baseball?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been playing baseball my whole life. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, right? So grew up, high school, and just played a lot of baseball. And I moved to Ireland in the mid-'90s to do graduate school, basically, is why I came over here. And I mean, there was a league that was starting up just about the time I got here, and a lot of people were already here setting the groundwork. So just bringing my knowledge, love of the game, and to bring it to my new home at the time, it was just a lot of fun, and I've been here ever since.
I've been, I spent about a week in Ireland in, I guess 2002, and thought to myself, this might be the closest thing to heaven I've ever, I definitely told my wife the next time we go, it'll be a one-way trip.
Sure.
How is the appetite for baseball in Ireland?
Yeah, I mean, the game of baseball definitely has, the history, the tradition, the mythology, if you will, through literature and film. That's known over here in Ireland, but definitely as a sport, as an organized competitive sport, it's relatively new. We've been playing organized baseball here since the mid '90s, right? So, and we started with about 4 teams. And over that time, just kind of how I guess Ireland's really kind of opened up to the rest of the world through the internet, through a lot of American companies relocating, or they're running a lot of the business out of Ireland. And now Ireland being the only English-speaking country in the European Union now after Brexit, right? It's just there's just a lot of connections between the United States and Ireland. And one thing that just kind of comes naturally with that is just a knowledge of the game of baseball, right? So just, briefly speaking about it, is just, definitely it's a sport that's known, but definitely it's a new sport as an organized option for people. So actually, Ireland would actually be part of a wider European baseball competition and leagues as well. So it's kind of actually from the United States through Europe, and it's ended up here in Ireland.
I think the one question everybody would want to ask before we get to organization is everyone a Red Sox fan over there? It just seems like that's the sort of myth, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, absolutely, definitely. There's a lot of Bostonians here, a lot of New York, and it would be a good blend between Mets and Yankees, in fairness. But a lot of that comes into through no faults of their own. We can't speak for their taste and everything, but it really, that I think is the connection between the United States and Ireland. It's places like Boston and New York, which would have seen a lot of immigration from Ireland to those places from the middle of the 20th century. So yeah, you can't help them in that. That was probably the first exposure to the game was maybe a game at Fenway or Old Yankee Stadium in the Bronx.
So let's talk a little bit about Baseball Ireland, because you guys are really top down, and I like the fact that you guys do Little League both, or youth baseball, both baseball and softball. How important is it to start at the grassroots when you're talking about building a baseball culture?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's extremely important. I mean, that's the culture that I came from. Ireland was a little bit different how it started, though. It actually started in the mid-'90s with a national team. Mm-hmm. So that was before there was a league, there was a little bit of a Little League, right? So I wouldn't say that it was totally non-existent. But kind of the first generation, if you will, from the mid-'90s was, the core group of players that were around that national team. And kind of after that came the leagues. And then, having to come up with an idea to sustain the sport is you have to then invest time and effort into building up a structure that's going to be good for the youth, right? So, and that's been our main thrust of the organization over the past 5-6 years. We're rolling out a 10-year strategy to grow the game at youth level through engaging with the schools in particular, but also having our clubs form youth teams as well as their adult teams. So, I mean, and that's a very typical model for Europe in a lot of ways, in that the game is introduced to people who are, a little bit more advanced in age, perhaps. And as they're getting a little bit older, they want to continue the sport. And then it's like, oh, okay, we actually have to pay some attention to the kids. And that's where you'll start to really grow the game and build a community around each youth club. So that's extremely important to what we're doing right now.
Let's talk a little bit about the 10-year plan you spoke about. And I kind of want to remove what COVID might have done for that for now, because I know that COVID slowed down the momentum for everything. But what are some of the goals coming out of that? Where do you see the sport once you've sort of accomplished the plan?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt COVID's had an impact, especially as we were building up some momentum for our 10 by 10 strategy. That's what we call it, our 10 by 10 strategy. And that we had just opened up a new state-of-the-art indoor baseball facility that we can't use right now because of the restrictions.
Right.
So basically, I think what it's done is that as we were building up momentum, is that now we have a structure in place that we can build into. So yeah, as I mentioned, we have an indoor facility now. Also, we've been able to fund a full-time development coach, and that's extremely important as well. So this was all ready to go, and then COVID came, and then definitely kind of put a stop to things. But we've been pushing through, and that we're still playing. Last season we still had a league. We still played youth baseball. We've been doing a lot of things like most of the baseball world is now online with online coaches or online coaching and player development courses. So we've been able to hold where we've been as far as the momentum. And we're hoping that with the rollout of the vaccines and as things open up, as that's what it looks like for this summer, that we're going to be able to start from where we left off. But no doubt there's been an impact, but that it definitely hasn't impacted the enthusiasm in our membership. People just can't wait to get out there and start playing again.
It is funny how it seemed like the baseball world really was united. I watched more Chinese rule, Taiwan baseball than you ever would have thought, because I just needed it. I am not, and those who listen to my show know or watch the show know, I am not the world's biggest fan of Rob Manfred, whether you are or not is immaterial. But I wanted to ask, I thought one of the smart things that he was doing that I think, of course, was interrupted by COVID was actually playing series in Europe. How beneficial is that going to be for your organization to really help expose more people to the game?
Yeah, we need to see. It was the London series was extremely exciting. It got a lot of attention, scored a lot of runs, especially in that first game. I think it was pretty crazy. So, but I do think, it would be kind of cool to play a Major League Baseball game here in Dublin. But I think also how Major League Baseball, they're looking more to expanding the access to a marketplace, and that makes sense to go out of the UK and then maybe expand into mainland Europe a bit more. I mean, Ireland, it's a country about 4.5 million people. So we're not expecting Major League Baseball to invest, a lot of their resources into expanding the game here. But if we're clever about it and we have really good connections with the British Baseball Federation, and that we can engage with that experience, because I think they're going to be rolling out more and more games in London. I mean, basically what they did, they have all of the infield and all of the fencing off in a warehouse outside of London. So they're there for the long haul, right? So they're going to bring it back. And if we can get a little bit of media attention, if we can bring over some players and coaches, maybe to do like a day tour in Dublin and hit up some media, things like that, it's not going to be, having a direct effect of a game here. But I think, using that experience and that publicity and to, latch on to that in a way. And because that event will be covered in the media here in Ireland, and I think there's a huge opportunity for that. Not only in the main kind of big media, but a lot of social media, and even some like smaller niche online sports channels like yours, perhaps.
Like this one.
We have these. Yeah, we have these all over Ireland, and our story is really attractive to them. So anyway, that's kind of how I think we'd plan to engage with Major League Baseball with the London series in particular.
Yeah, I just really hope that the more people see it, they're like, oh, I like baseball, and here's this thing right down the street is hopefully the goal. So, just a few more questions before we wrap up.
Sure.
With 2021, what's the season looking like, and how can fans from across the pond, in the States, follow you guys as far as keeping up with how the season's going?
Yeah, I mean, it's we're due to start May 3rd is our opening day. The Irish government's going to be hopefully pulling back on the restriction just after Easter, right? So we have an A division and a B division and a youth league as well. We'll be playing about 20 to 25 games, hopefully,
nice. If
it's not truncated like it was last season. The best way to follow us right now would just be through our website, baseballireland.ie. We'll have all the games updated, some stats and things like that, and I think that'd be a good way for people to understand who we are. Also, the European Baseball Championships are scheduled to take place in June and July this year, and Ireland will be sending it's a senior team which will be competing for a qualifying spot in the European Championships, which is in September. So the qualifiers will take place in Slovakia, and they have all the games online there, right? So I think that's a good way. So look at the Confederation of European Baseball website, and you'll be able to live stream all those games. Also, our 18 and under team will be competing in the European Championships in Italy in late June, and those games will be live streamed as well. So just do a little bit of calculation with the time zone differences and all, and all those. Our national teams will be live streamed this summer, but our league games will be you'll be able to follow them through our website.
The math for the time zone, that was my impression. There'd be no math in this interview, but we'll work through it. A couple more questions for you then before I let you run. So you can see around me, I'm a gear guy, and a lot of the fans of the show are gear people. Is there a way to get Baseball Ireland gear bought online and shipped to us?
Not at the moment. Yeah, I mean, we've had some challenging, especially with COVID, but even before that. I mean, we're just, a small volunteer organization, so we can get the stuff made up, but it's been hard to distribute and fulfill orders, right? But we are in the process of doing that, so I would encourage people to look at baseballireland.ie. If you want to get a hold of me kind of offline here, we'll work out something, right? But, for kind of, getting merch out with a business support and all that. Yeah, that's going to be probably a little bit of a longer haul, only because it's been hard to distribute and to fulfill shipments. But if anyone listening has any ideas, if they know people, if they are interested in working with a very strong brand in Baseball Ireland, please let us know.
We will. I'm going to put you in touch with some people through email after this is over. I guess last question then is, how can we help? I know a lot of the fans of this show are really about letting baseball grow. Is there a way we can contribute or at least help keep the lights on, as they say?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a donate page on our website. We got 3 main channels that we approve for donation. One is through the Ireland funds, and that's one channel, and this is all on our website as well, so I won't go into that. Another is the Friends of Baseball Ireland, which is a nonprofit charity that we've established in the United States just for that purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And the other is through Genesis Strategic Advisors. They're our fundraising support in the United States. They're based in Rhode Island. So, but if you look on our website, you'll see those 3 channels, and anyone who loves Ireland and loves baseball, that's a great way to give. And right now, all of the proceeds and the funds that we're able to bring in, it's going into youth baseball development. So that's really important to us, and I think any donor to Baseball Ireland likes hearing that. So it's all about promoting and engaging with our youth baseball programs.
Well, we love hearing that. He is Tom Kelley, the president of Baseball Ireland. Tom, thank you so much for jumping on Let's Get To.
Yep, definitely. Thanks for having me.
On deck, the Let's Get To interview.
We are super excited to welcome to the show John Fitzgerald. He is the founder of the Irish American Baseball Society and also the purveyor of this amazing shirt that I introduced earlier in the episode. John, how you doing? Top of the inning to you.
Top of the inning to you. I'm good, Jim. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. It's gonna be St. Patrick's Day. It's baseball's coming, and I wanted, as someone who's half Irish but very ingrained with that heritage of mine, tell me a little bit about the foundation and why you started it.
Sure, and thanks for having me on. This is awesome. So about 15 years ago, I made a film called The Emerald Diamond, and it was a documentary about baseball in Ireland up until that point. And a lot of people saw it. It played in theaters across the country. It played in Austin, and people wanted to donate and they wanted to get involved, and there was no way to do that. So I started up a nonprofit called the Baseball United Foundation, and we just set about creating a vehicle for people to donate. And a lot of the donations were equipment or coaches wanting to go over to Ireland, but some people wanted to donate money, and we made sure that we allowed people, if there was a need or a desire to help baseball grow in Ireland, that we could help people do that. So that was in 2006, and fast forward to 2017, we decided, since the Baseball United Foundation was kind of moving in other directions with Ireland still being the focus, but we were getting requests from the US, from Africa, from other European countries. We wanted to segment out what we did with Ireland. So we started the Irish American Baseball Society, which is also a nonprofit. And that's how the society started. It's really grown because there's like a strong connection between the Irish diaspora and history of baseball. It goes back to the 1800s. So I think it really resonates with people.
First of all, I want to give you credit for being the first person to use the word diaspora on the show.
What do I win?
Well, you know what you win. You win a Let's Get To baseball cap is what you win.
Nice. All right. Cool.
We'll get that out to you. So tell me about the response to the organization, and also a little bit about the Hall of Fame, which I found very interesting.
Sure. So the Irish American Baseball Hall of Fame is or was based in New York City. It was started by Sean Clancy, who's a member of the Irish American Baseball Society, and Sean's been a supporter of the work that we've been doing in Ireland for years, and we've been friends. We met at some point in the last 10 years because of the work we were doing and because of what he's been doing to recognize the contributions of Irish Americans to the game of baseball. So that's kind of how that, I guess you'd say, partnership, friendship, it's all of those things got started. The reaction that we found is pretty enthusiastic. There's a lot of Irish American baseball fans. There's no special reason why, but there just are. And these are people that are interested in baseball. They're interested in Ireland. And we kind of give those guys, everybody from Steve Garvey, who's a member, down to guys like me that, is a baseball fan, and people have different connections to the game, different connections to Ireland. And we try to embrace that and allow people to, whatever your experience is with the game or the country, we let you be that and do that and talk about it and share those experiences with other people.
I would also like to point out that I am also a member and an Astros fan, which means not everyone who is Irish American likes the Red Sox. I think it's very important that we can. That
is true. You are an overlooked minority in the Irish American league. You don't have to be Irish. You don't have to be Irish American, and you can be an Astros fan. So
I'm at least, I'm all three of those. I am Irish American, and there you go. So you guys have a couple of new initiatives that really are just dropping really, really quickly. And I want to talk about the Kids Will Play Ball partnership, the press release you just sent out for school baseball programs in Northern Ireland. How important is it to go to essentially, the UK, in Northern Ireland, and kind of grow the game there?
It's a big deal for us. We've been working in Ireland for years. We've done work with organizations in Belfast because it's the way baseball is structured in Europe. If you grow up in Belfast, you can play for the Irish national team. So we've done work in Belfast before. What this does is pretty cool for us because it allows us to without really pushing baseball as like, in Europe, it's different. You're not going to be, 12 years old playing on the elite local team in your town. If you're playing, it's more of a club thing. It's fun. And we want to push the fun aspect of baseball, and getting baseball into schools in Northern Ireland is really important because it allows boys and girls to play. They can play it in a setting that's not as it's certainly competitive, but it's not kind of like, all right, here's your uniform, here are your cleats, here's your bat, and you're going to go play a 3-hour game. It's kind of like, hey, it's gym class. Let's play this new sport and have fun doing it. And we've seen in the U.S. when we try to introduce baseball that way, it resonates with kids a lot better when you kind of start with the premise that like baseball is basically a game of tag with a lot of really cool stuff layered on top of it.
Right,
Kids are a lot more receptive. So that's kind of the approach we take. And in Ireland, there's it's a small country. In the north and the south, it's a small country. There are a lot of sports there, and there's a lot of competition here for the kids, to play all these different sports. But in Ireland, you've got a lot of sports that are native to the country. Smaller population, so it's a much tougher sell to get them on baseball. So we try to really keep it light and keep it fun.
One of the things I like about that is we need that approach in this country as well. I mean, we've talked about this show before that baseball is basically becoming lacrosse. If you are rich and can afford the gear, you can play, and we're losing an entire generation of ball players who. It's a lot easier to play basketball or even football in some cases than it is to play baseball because of the way it's structured at the youth level. Yeah.
We've seen a lot of the stuff that we've seen in Ireland as far as teaching the game to kids. We are now seeing that in the U.S. because kids don't grow up with that familiarity with just everything that I'm sure you grew up with too. Baseball cards. Sure. Watching a game on Saturday afternoon, like all of that stuff is gone, and you can't throw a glove at a kid in the U.S. and expect a 5-year-old kid to know how to play the game. But we've seen that in Ireland with 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who have a really good excuse. They grew up in Ireland and they don't know the game. So we've seen it from both sides of the Atlantic, and we think it kind of puts us in a position to be able to kind of speak to kids in the U.S. on their level and an understanding that if you didn't grow up, rooting for the Red Sox by the time you're 8 years old, you're not going to have those fundamentals, and you have to be welcomed into the game. It's the same thing in Ireland because they don't grow up playing or watching the game, so you have to approach them from that perspective.
I wanted to talk about the historical aspect of your organization. I'm a history guy as well. Studied history in college as well as film, and what I love about baseball, unlike any other American sport, is the past of the game is still very present. We're still comparing people to Babe Ruth and Hank Aaron and all those folks. So talk a little bit about some of the Irish Americans' influence on baseball that you guys are highlighting through the organization.
Yeah, as you might expect, or you probably already know from our Facebook page, the history of baseball players from Ireland and of Irish ancestry is it's a little nutty. I mean, there's been some real characters, guys that have punched their catcher, fist fights on the mound, hiding the ball in the outfield, that sort of thing. Always looking for an edge, especially in the late 1800s. But also on the flip side of that, there's just been, the guy with the most wins as a manager is Connie Mack. His parents are from Ireland. Most wins in the National League is John McGraw. Also, I think both of his parents were from Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. Just everything from like Wee Willie Keeler is the reason why a foul ball with 2 strikes is an out, because he used to bunt the ball to foul off 15 pitches in a row to tire the pitcher out. It's actually Connie Mack is actually, I found this out the other day. Connie Mack is the reason why a caught third strike is an out, because he was so good at mimicking the sound of a foul ball. So he would just strike out a batter just by, faking it.
Are you saying that baseball players have often bent the rules throughout the history of the game to get a competitive?
I'm not getting into that. I heard that episode recently. I'm not getting into that. But yeah. But yeah, the Irish guys, it's a long history. The first Red Sox manager to win back-to-back World Series was Irish. So it's just a long, long history, and the impact of Irish Americans on the game is profound. And it's cool to see, to understand that, to research it. There's no real, reason for it other than you know, the socioeconomic reasons why Irish guys were playing baseball in the late 1800s, early 1900s. But it's still cool to recognize. It's still cool to check out, you know, who are these guys? What were they all about? You know, certain guys like Jack Doyle, who like went on to like a 45-year career in baseball. Like those baseball lifers are the reason baseball is what it is. And sure. It's just interesting to just know about that stuff and to share those stories.
If you've listened to the show for a second, you know that most of the creators of the show are in fact not the largest fans of Mr. Robert Manfred. I will give him credit, though. I do think some of his efforts to grow the game internationally are welcomed. I think the pandemic put a bit of a bite in that, but I thought, you know, the series in the UK was very successful. I know I watched a lot of it. How important is that, do you think, of Major League Baseball taking a step into that direction to help the game keep growing and kind of follow up, or can y'all piggyback on their efforts?
Yeah, it's real important. Yeah, Rob Manfred actually has been a supporter of what we've done, just in like general interest stuff, you know, pointing us in the right direction to try to, you know, find just outlets for what we're trying to do. And he has, or his people have expressed interest in a baseball game in Ireland. You know, we approached them, we asked them about it based off of the success of the series in London, and there's interest. I mean, you know, really you just would need to prove that there's enough Irish American baseball fans that would go to something like that. And I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, but you know, they're going to have to see that. But we would love to see that. I mean, that would just be tremendous, because it shows that Europe can support baseball on that level. That there's an interest of American fans in that. There's a lot of American fans that are not Irish and would love to see stuff like that. I mean, you know, it's to me, it's interesting to see. I'd rather be at a minor league ball game, you know, somewhere in the U.S. But you know, if it's in Ireland, I'd definitely go.
100%. I will say too, what I think is really cool about the game, and one of the themes of how I experience the game as a fan is that there's the sort of political part and the hierarchical part of MLB, and then there's the soul of the game. And what I've been impressed with is how many fans of all teams, at least through Twitter, that we interact with from all over the place, that really do, I think, love the core of the game. And I think if we can get that spread, the more people, the better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the less you dumb down baseball and you just kind of serve it to people as, you know, what it is, I think people really resonate. We've seen that with kids, actually. And, you know, you try to make it fun. I mean, it's not baseball anymore. I mean, baseball is fun. So, you know, Let the kids play the game.
Let the kids play and let's play the game. So you guys, great organization. Where can everybody find you? How can they help? Can they contribute? What, all of that stuff?
Yeah, if they go to irishbaseball.org, that's our website. You know, we accept donations, but we don't ask for them. I mean, basically what we do is we have a yearly membership fee. It's $20 a year. And, you know, it's something where we just feel if all the fans, you know, get together and you know, kind of rally behind the cause, the money and the donations and stuff like that, that'll take care of itself. So what we're just looking for is baseball fans that want to know more about the history of the game, and want to see what's happening over in Ireland, and just kind of celebrate the two things. I mean, you don't have to be Irish, but you do have to be a baseball fan. So if anyone wants to check it out, it's irishbaseball.org.
Holler and a Swaller, a chug of ballpark brew, presented by The Hitter Sports.
And we are back here on Holler and a Swaller, and it is St. Patrick's Day, which means we are definitely not going to skip this segment. Holler and a Swaller, brought to you by The Hitter Sports. Make sure you give him a follow. No, we're not going to skip this segment because St. Patrick's Day is a lot of things, and yes, it's about imbibing. And now normally I spend St. Patrick's Day drinking straight Irish whiskey and watching some of my favorite Irish movies, all of which are mostly sad. I'm definitely like In the Name of the Father every year gets watched. But, you know, we are going to be doing this show. And if we're going to do this show, we got to do it right. And that means having a nice Irish beer for Holler and a Swaller. And no, I am not doing a Guinness. I don't believe that any self-respecting person of Irish descent should ever drink Guinness out of a can or a bottle. I think it's got to be served on tap, preferably at room temperature in Ireland out of a pub. I just never got it down with the whole can thing. It's got the weird thing in the bottom. I just was never into it. So what we're going to do is a Smithwicks red ale. Smithwicks has been brewing in Ireland for over 300 years. Like the castle at the heart of Kilkenny, where Smithwicks was founded, our brews have stood the test of time. This ruby red brew earned its rightful place as Ireland's most loved ale. Now brewed in Dublin, this red ale has a blend of mild hops, sweet malt, and roasted barley. So we're going to have the Smithwicks red ale made in now Dublin, but originally in Kilkenny, and ASMR. Now, before we actually take a sip of this, I do want to show off my bottle opener. It is a pretty boss-looking Millennium Falcon. I definitely will oftentimes just fly it around the kitchen. But the segment wouldn't be complete without a traditional Irish toast. So, may those who love us, and those that don't love us, may God turn their hearts. And if he doesn't turn their hearts, may he turn their ankles, so we know them by their limping. Holler and a Swaller, baby, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Raiders of the Lost Diamond, a look into baseball's past.
And so we are back here for the first time on Raiders of the Lost Diamond with our very own baseball archaeologist, Andrew Nelson. Andrew, I've got a Smithwicks. I started drinking it last segment. This is what we're doing now. And I'm excited for you to tell us a little bit about some Irish baseball. But first, what are you wearing?
I am wearing a baseballism lucky baseball hat in honor of St. Patrick's Day. You can see the four-leaf clover containing a baseball. And then for extra green, I've got my 2020 What the Shuck Cedar Rapids Colonels shirt.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And I introduced it last segment. It's a shirt from the Irish American Baseball Society that says top of the inning to you.
Nice.
And the Chicago Dogs. So what do we have today for Raiders?
Well, faith and pecora, Jim. It's time for green beer, green diamonds, and talking of vaguely Irish-themed baseball teams. Today we're headed down south to Alabama to learn about the Selma Cloverleafs.
Oh.
As with many minor league towns, Selma has a history of teams with distinctive names. The first professional baseball team in Selma took the field as the Christians in the Class B Southern Association in 1901. That team only lasted one season and was followed by another one-season effort by the Selma YMCA team of the unclassified Alabama-Georgia League in 1903.
Okay.
The Selma Centralites had a little more staying power, staying in the Class D Southeastern and Cotton States League from 1911 to 1913. And the following year, the River Rats roamed the Selma Diamond as part of the Class D Georgia-Alabama League. Baseball took a break from Selma for a few years, and it returned in 1927 and would stay for a few more decades this time. The first of the new clubs to call Selma home were the creatively named Selmians of the Class B Southeastern League. In 1928, the local Selma Nine would finally settle on the moniker under which they would play for decades, the Cloverleafs. They spotted a green-trimmed white uniform with a large shamrock on the chest, and that's why we're talking about them today. The Cloverleafs continued to compete as members of the Southeastern League, capturing a championship in 1930. That pennant-winning team was led by first baseman Rip Radcliffe, who hit .369 with 15 homers over 132 games. Radcliffe would go on to an 11-year career as a major league journeyman with the Chicago White Sox, St. Louis Browns, and Detroit Tigers.
Oh.
Selma picked up an affiliation with the Boston Red Sox and Washington Senators, two teams at once.
Of course.
Of course. In 1937. and the Senators again from 1940 to 41. They also were affiliated with Pittsburgh Pirates from 1946 to 47, and the Chicago Cubs from 1948 to 49. The club's luck ran out after the 1950 season, and unfortunately they ceased operations. They wouldn't be gone for too long, though.
The luck ran out, Andrew. That's what we're doing.
That's my level of dad humor.
I'm into it.
The Cloverleafs would be reborn in 1957 as members of the Class D Alabama-Florida League. This team was considerably more fortunate than their predecessors, at least on the field. They had affiliations with the Philadelphia Phillies in their first year and the Kansas City Athletics in 1958. More green. Their greatest period of success would come as a Cleveland Indians farm team, winning championships in 1959, 61, and 62.
Oh, wow.
The 1959 Cloverleafs were anchored by shortstop Max Alvis and third baseman Larry Brown, who would both go on to play decent stretches for the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Future Indians and Texans journeyman pitcher Steve Hargan took the mound for Selma in 1961. Finally, future Rookie of the Year and three-time Manager of the Year, Lou Piniella, patrolled the outfield for the Cloverleafs in 1962. Wow. He batted .270, knocked in 8 home runs over 70 games for the Cloverleafs. Sadly for the city of Selma, 1962 was their last year of affiliated Major League Ball, and the Cloverleafs packed up shop. After a long absence again, the Cloverleaf name was brought back to life in Selma as a member of the Independent Southeastern League in 2002.
Oh.
The new Cloverleafs featured a snarling shamrock on their uniforms and held a theme night honoring people who had played for or been involved with the teams that played in the 1950s and 1960s on June 25th of 2002. Sadly, the Selma Nine were only able to finish the season with a 29-29 record and didn't make enough money for their owner to put up the $100,000 safety net that the league required for them to rejoin the league in the 2003 season.
Oh.
The Cloverleafs would play as a traveling team in 2003. They had one last notable chapter in their history when they grabbed national media attention by signing Ted Williams' son, John Henry Williams. The Cloverleafs' luck ran out for good, and they folded after the 2003 season.
The theme night you talked about reminded me of that scene in Major League where they were having like longevity night, where if you were alive that last time they actually won a pennant, you could go to the game for free. Yeah,
I mean, it sounded like they picked up anybody who had any kind of link at all. If you'd sold programs or gone to games or been involved with the team in some capacity, they wanted you back. They needed to drum up excitement and ticket sales and all that, and unfortunately it didn't work out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one doesn't think of, if I think bastions of Irish heritage, I don't think Alabama.
No.
Which I think makes it interesting. Andrew, I'm looking forward to this season, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
you've got some gems ready for us to dig up as we get going.
I've got a couple of research projects I'm already started on. A couple of regional teams that I actually have physical books to work from rather than just my internet search foo. But it should be some interesting topics we're covering this year.
Let's Get To presents the McEntire Mule, the Scott McEntire baseball experience.
So we are back here with the very first edition of the McEntire Mule, and this might be our most straight and normal conversation that we're going to have on this show, Scott. First of all, how are you over there? I see you got your Woo Pig stuff going on. Number one team in the country.
I just had to start off with that. I hope that doesn't hurt that we don't have rights to the fight song of your number one Arkansas Razorbacks. Man, it is a great time to be a Razorback fan. Our basketball team's top 10, the baseball team's number one in the country, and the football team's not playing. So those are three good things, It's great. I've got my boss hog back here. I've got the hat on. I've moved upstairs for this just to have some fresh air. Man, it's a great time. And it's a great time to be a college baseball fan. I can't wait to talk about that.
It's been a great time. I'm a little miffed the last couple of Texas road games that have been broadcast, because they're not broadcast on LHN. They've been broadcast on ESPN Plus, I guess, using whatever camera gear they have on site. And so I'm used to lots of camera angles in LHN versus shooting into the dismal dark recesses of Texas State's whatever that is they play in. But tell me a little bit about why, you and I are both lovers of the ping. It's different this year. Talk to me a little bit about how it's been different this year.
Because seniors didn't have to leave, and there were only 5 rounds of a draft last year, man. It's like walking into a nightclub full of wound up women at midnight, and you're the only guy in the place. I mean, that's the talent pool that sits out there right now. No, in all seriousness, Casey Opitz of Arkansas was going to be a top 10 round, possibly a top 5 round selection. He was a senior last year, great catcher, reminiscent of a switch hitting Biggio, if you will. He didn't get drafted in the first 5 rounds, so they come after him with these free agent deals. Well, he doesn't want to take that. He has the option to come back for 1 more year. So this guy and so many more like him have decided, I'm going to come back. I didn't get to really play last year. I'm going to come back and play again and up my stock. And you're seeing that across the board, and the results we're seeing are insane. I mean, what was it? Out of the top 5 teams in the nation, like they all lost to some nobody. And this past weekend, LSU got beat over the series by Oral Roberts in Baton Rouge. Yeah. The first game, LSU scored 7 runs. They could have tripled that number and still lost. They got beat 22-7. And it's because of this depth. It's because, and I really do believe, Jim, that at the end of the year, what you're going to see in college baseball is you're going to have these teams that are mid-majors. They make a run. They'll get in a regional. They'll scare somebody. But now they got depth. And this is where it comes back to what we're talking about in this extension. Not only do they have depth on the field, but they got deep, deep, deep bullpens. So if Johnny Strongarm starts getting a little weak in the 3rd inning, I got somebody just as good as him in the bullpen. And that's also honestly, that's why Arkansas is number 1. The number 1 and 2 starters from last year are not in the rotation this year. They're coming out of the bullpen.
Out of the bullpen. Wow. Yeah. It's funny because I was watching Texas at UH this weekend, and it was sort of fun to see, guys that had been on show. A certain first baseman, last name Hernandez, out of U of H, made a hell of a diving stop. But I'm watching this game and I'm listening to the UH roster, and it's so many grad transfers that I think more than they've ever had. And you're right. It's just that there's so much talent that it's going to make for compelling baseball at all levels.
Yeah, and people forget that, baseball teams only have like 11 plus, 11 and a half scholarships, 11.3, whatever, the 11.7, I don't remember the exact number. More than 11, less than 12. That's how many scholarships they can hand out. And you think about, well, to get through a weekend, that's 11 people right there.
Yeah.
There's 3 starters, you got 3 pitchers, and everybody playing a position. So you have to have a lot of flexibility with the guys that you bring in. Academic scholarships get replaced instead. So there's all this shifting of shell games and everything going on already. Well, the NCAA says, okay, we're going to allow seniors to stick around. So suddenly there's a little bit more scholarship flexibility for this year alone. Now we can talk about what's going to happen in the future. Now it's still going to stay rich because of the cut down of the draft.
But let's jump to that, because I do want to get to that, because this problem, if you want to call it a problem, or this opportunity, it isn't changing, because to your point, we're working. I think it's a 10-round draft next year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it looks like. No, you're exactly right. So therefore, in the past, it's been, infinite amount. Everybody talks about Mike Piazza got drafted in the 43rd, 47th round, something way down there, and only as a favor to his dad, who had been part of the organization. Well, that's not going to be the case anymore. There's 10 rounds. This is as significant, if not more so, than when the NFL went from 12 rounds to 7. I would actually argue that it's more equatable to when the NBA cut down to 2 rounds. Because if you think about it, you need 5 basketball players on a field. To get through a full series at the major league level, you need 13 if you're going to have 5 starters that go the whole game. And, oh, by the way,
that never happened.
That ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think it's so significant that you've only got 10 rounds of this draft, and it's about to change college baseball drastically. I don't know if people realize that. If they haven't, they're going to catch on. And hey, this is our breaking news. College baseball is about to get a whole lot better. The minor league system that was there, all the single A's that they had, gone away. It's going to turn into college, and I actually think in a really strange way. I hate to say this because I kind of got to give Major League Baseball credit for what they've done, but indirectly, I think they're going to increase the education level of a lot of players trying to get into the big leagues. Now, where the gap is really going to happen and where it will be very interesting is who gets left out from Latino players, Hispanic players, players coming off the Dominican Islands, foreign players that don't have a natural path into college. But maybe they will, because we see international players come in and play other sports in college. So the educational opportunities may actually increase for baseball players, which to me is a great thing, because I personally know guys that were 18, 19 years old and had the choice to go to a school for college or get drafted in the 30-something odd round, and they chose that draft and they never got their education.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that bums me out about the shortened draft is I do think it means the story of that 40th round guy is gone. Of course, now it's just going to be undrafted free agent after undrafted free agent, because that's going to be where the majority, frankly, of your teams are going to come from now, are undrafted free agents, it looks like. But one of the things I wanted to ask before I ask about the play on the field, but this changing of the draft, and like to your point, with fewer rounds of the draft, does that mean MLB teams, are they more likely to now draft a college player versus taking a flyer on a high school kid? Like, is that what you think the case will be now?
A great point. And I think they have to, right? You can't take those long shots, because you could take, the majority of the kids coming out of high school that were getting drafted are surefire things. Kid's already hitting 96, 97 on a gun. He has a frame, but he's skinny, and we know we can add weight to him, stuff like that, right? Now they're going to look at it and say, I need a little bit more proof on the field. And I think we saw that in last year's draft. There weren't a whole lot of high schoolers. The ratio wasn't as skewed as it has been in the past. And what I really think, if I can see a guy do it in college, and I've already seen 3 years of his growth, and I don't have rookie ball and single low A ball,
short season stuff,
short season, and I don't have all that now. I got to make sure that what this guy is that I'm bringing in is good. And so the year he would have spent in rookie ball, the 2 years he would have spent in single A, and then started really making his progression double A upward to make it to the bigs at 24. I got 3 years of that already knocked out at the University of East Carolina at, whatever school plays baseball, not Iowa State, which that's a different story. Why did they not have baseball at Iowa State?
That's a different story.
But anyway, but I think they're going to use those college programs as proving grounds and feeders. And I absolutely think it's the right way to go. And I'll also, this comes back to coaching staffs too. There's a lot more attention going to be paid to college baseball in the coming years. So the college baseball coaches are going to be more in the hot seat, not just the guys that you see in the top 10, 20 programs every year, but these lower level guys. I think it's going to turn into a lot of baseball.
David Pierce would like to ask you, when has his seat not been hot?
Okay, fair.
To your point. Let's take a look at it real quick. We've wrapped really the first couple of weeks are in the books. Is Andy Tom Cheston famously says on our show, you don't worry about your major league team until after Memorial Day. When do you start to worry or get excited about your team at the college level?
Third of the way into the conference season, you should pretty well have an idea of where you're at. Also, very often, people will flail away when their team loses a midseason game. Arkansas, I think it was a couple of years ago, lost to the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, or almost lost to them.
Yeah.
People were gnashing their teeth, freaking out. This was supposed to be a big game at it was supposed to be a big game, and in Little Rock, the two teams played, and UAPB threw this kid that was throwing like 64 mile an hour slow changes, threw the Arkansas timing off. They hadn't seen it all year. they didn't come through and everybody's losing their mind. Well, Arkansas was saving their arms for the weekend when they're playing Florida, right? Yeah. That's a little more. And so you get a lot of that in college ball. And so if your team loses a midweek game to a lower level opponent, don't freak out. You were using your 6th, 7th, and 8th best pitchers probably in that game because you want to save arms for the weekend. That's one thing that I would tell people, but a third of the way into the conference season, you should really have an idea of where you're at. Certain conferences are extremely strong, and bear in mind, just because your team is deep, they all are this year. SEC and Big 12 are going to be exciting conferences to watch for sure. I mean, ACC and Pac-12 too, but the SEC is just it's almost like its own AA league. The way these guys are playing right now, it's freakishly good.
So as we wrap up, then programming note. You're going to be coming down to Texas to do a couple of different segments, one of which will be your first game at Dish Falk. What are you looking forward to as someone who's sort of a very neutral observer to Texas OU in Austin?
Boy, as neutral as it gets, right? I'm really looking forward to it. The biggest struggle I'm having right now is what do I wear? Because I cannot wear burnt orange without my skin hurting. Yeah. And there's no way I'm wearing that deep red of Oklahoma either. I'm looking forward to seeing the field. I'm looking forward to being in a college baseball atmosphere with two teams where I care about the play on the field. I'm going to pull for Texas because I'm going to be there for you. Yes, my friends who are Arkansas fans saw that, and I don't care. Bite me. It's over. The Southwest Conference is over. We can let it go a little bit, and we won the game. I'm just looking forward to seeing the product on the field and not having to watch it online through some sketchy means, like what you were talking about earlier. Because that first weekend series, man, when they were playing up at Globe Life with Texas TCU, Tech involved, and then Arkansas and the two other SEC teams, man, that was. Yeah. That was like watching a Wrigley game at 2:00 in the morning and half the lights are burnt out. It's awful.
Well, we'll make sure we get up and see, all the busts and all that stuff. He is Scott McEntire, the first edition of the McEntire Mule. He'll be back pretty much weekly from now until after the winter meeting. Scott, be well. I'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely, Jim. Looking forward to seeing you. Take care.
All right, brother.
Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
So we're jumping back into Go Astros. My brother Tim is joining us. He will be one of our anchors to talk about this very, very different. It's going to be it's a crossroads kind of season for the Astros, Tim.
Absolutely. I think it is. I think there's a lot to be positive about. I think there's a lot of youth. I think that as long as nobody falls to the pandemic any longer, then I think we're going to be great. I think that, people aren't seeing the big names. Hopefully with the Odorizzi signing, that alleviates that pressure. But, looking at the roster and thinking about last year and that small pressured-filled season that they played, guys like Christian Javier coming up and actually giving him a full season. Yeah, this could be something big for him. You'd start seeing him maybe come from a 4 to maybe a 2 or a 3, or I don't want to say it, but maybe a 1. Who knows? But I think there's a lot to be positive about. I think there's a lot to look at and a lot of excitement to have for best Astros fans.
You brought up Odorizzi, and one of the things I've always felt interesting, and I think it's sports fans get in a rut, and so for some reason we still sort of saddled Jim Crane with the thing we've saddled every Astros owner of: he doesn't spend money. Does the Odorizzi signing and the bringing Brantley back signing, does that kind of remove some of that label for him?
I mean, I think it does. I think it absolutely does. I mean, Jim Crane to me seems a guy that he's a businessman, right? He looks for that opportunity. I don't necessarily think that he was going to look for the big name. I think that they saw an opportunity with Odorizzi, with Fromber falling down and missing most of the season is what it looks like.
Yeah.
He's worried about a baseball team, and rightfully so. I think that he can look at the Odorizzi signing and say, yeah, I got a name, I spent some money, that's cool. But he also looks at this roster and says, hey, there's some talent here that we need to give a chance to. And so, I think that gets that off him, and I think that he made a smart decision with the Brantley signing, and I think he made the right move with the Odorizzi signing. But mostly when I think about Jim Crane, I think of him as he is a baseball guy, so he knows what he's doing.
One of the things I wanted to bring up, and everybody's depressed about the Springer signing. Not signing. I am one of them, and I try to be smart enough and say, well, on the one hand, he is a 31-year-old outfielder. Is the Springer signing or not signing with the Blue Jays, is that sort of forgiven if Correa gets extended? If it basically came down to one of the two and they picked Correa, is that going to be enough to kind of wash that away?
I don't know. I think that's going to be time will tell. Springer, I mean, George Springer he was the catalyst. He's the match that lit the fuse for this whole run.
Yeah.
And he was the guy, you always had him in the outfield ready to go. And once had his thing, and he's just so talented and just really good, for the clubhouse too. I think that's a time will tell thing. I think that Jim Crane does see, or let's say, everybody in the front office do want to have that core. And I think Correa is a part of that core. And, I think that's a time, like I said, time will tell whether that was the right move. I'm sad about it too. I know that most of my family is, Maddie especially, for reasons that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a time will tell thing. Let's see what happens. It's a talented individual that you just lost, and he would, it's a lot of money. He wanted to be a 31-year-old outfielder. So
do you think Correa does get signed, and does he have to get signed in spring training, or do you think the Astros have a chance in the open market if that's what they choose to do?
I think if we learned anything from this front office is that, well, I say that liberally because it's relatively a new front office now. We don't really know as much as we did, but if any of these same principles are still involved in the Luna front office, then I think they'll let it kind of go for a little bit. They're not going to oversign. They're going to maybe see how the season works out. If you're strong, maybe we'll get you in there and get you a good deal signed quickly. But I don't see it in spring training now. I don't see it.
Yeah, the concern I have is that every time they've re-signed, it's been in spring training, and then every time it's gone to the season, it's not happened, right? Like, so
right.
Altuve, Bregman, Verlander, Keuchel, Cole, Springer.
Right.
That's I think my ultimate concern. One of the big things is all when Luna was here making deals, his refusal to deal Forrest Whitley. And then I think it just broke today that it looks like Tommy John surgery is going to happen for Forrest.
It's a strained UCL is the official diagnosis.
Yeah, so it looks like I think Chandler Rome has him from the Chronicle is having Tommy John missing the season.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Whitley's ever going to live up to the hype, or is he just going to be a sort of another example of a kid that didn't work out?
I think on the balance beam, we're leaning toward that kid that didn't work out. And that's unfortunate because he's talented. But yeah, it's starting because now the things are starting to compound. Like, this would have been a great year for him to break out.
Yeah.
And for him to show and step up and be that guy. This would have been, the perceivably weak base pitching staff, if you want to look at it that way. This would have been great for him to step up and done that. And not saying it's his fault. I'm not saying that, oh man, he did it on purpose. It's just unfortunate that it's kind of leaning toward the direction of maybe this might have been just kind of, this will fizzle out and maybe not be the guy we thought he would be.
I agree. Disappointing. I think one of the more disappointing turns, Framber Valdez. Nobody really knows.
They're still expecting to see him later in the season.
So you feel like we're going to see him for the year, so he could be a mid-season shot in the arm for the club.
Yeah, I think maybe we're looking, after the break, he's maybe that boost we need because I mean, after he broke the finger, he still pitched the rest of that inning.
I think he pitched the next inning too. Like, it's weird.
Yeah,
like
he did. Yeah, he did pitch a little while in the next inning, but it shows a lot for his toughness, how much he wants to be here, which, I've told you this before. That's how I want my baseball player on my team to be. I want him to be here. And
you think he was still thinking about Carlos yelling at him last season, and he was afraid to tell anybody he was hurt?
Exactly.
I think he was.
I think he was. I think he's officially foregone surgery, and he's just going to let it heal. And so that's going to keep him a possibility for this year. So I think it goes back.
I certainly hope so. And I guess last question then, not last question, but, about personnel. We have two Astros that have said they want to be Astros for life. Carlos Correa and Lance McCullers Jr. First of all, if you're James Click and you can sign one of them, particularly in the offseason or in the preseason, still in the spring training, where you can make a very lucrative deal, who do you sign, Correa or McCullers?
I signed Correa. And if you told me, honestly, coming into the 2020 season, I probably would say McCullers because he was admittedly on social media pumping up his four-seam fastball, so I was all about it. But but just what he did for this team last year, what he did clubhouse-wise and talent. I mean, man, he stepped up. You can't. But when we're talking about the Springer situation, Correa became that for this team last year, and I think that shows leadership for the future, and I think that gives you one of your guys. And so I say Correa. McCullers, if you could, I mean, great, but you can't give him number one money. You know what I mean? You just really can't. He has a problem staying healthy, and there's too many times we'll hang up, and he'll hang up a changeup, or he'll just lob something, and he gets frustrated and he gets on tilt, and then there we are.
He does seem to have, and a lot of that could just be a young player, but he does sometimes become his own worst enemy on the mound. I sort of agree with you. If team friendly number 2 or number 3 starter money is one thing, but not this cranky Verlander money that's about to get relieved. Okay, so let's play crystal ball for a second. Okay. Is Correa starting at shortstop in Minute Maid Park in 2022? Yes or no?
Yes. I say yes.
Okay.
I say yes, and I know that some of the guys in my baseball league will disagree with me, but they're a bunch of sharks anyway. So just
okay. What has you the most excited and concerned about the 2021 edition of the Astros?
Excited. Baseball. I think that this team is awesome. I think it's just as maybe not just as good as it was. Obviously you lose big chunks with Springer, but I think the team element's going to come back. I think you're going to see a lot of that fire come back because they're still going to be defending themselves. They're still going to be on edge, and I think that you're going to see a lot of these guys step up in a big way. Hopefully, you see the return of Bregman, and the return of Bregman. The 2017, 2018, 2019 Bregman. The guy that you kind of wish, if he wasn't on your team, you wish you could punch him in the face. But so I'm excited about that. I'm starting to see this attitude back. I want that back. Worried about it? I'm worried about the youth. I think this team's young now. I think that these guys that kind of got experience, but now that we have holes, now that we've lost Springer, we've lost some veterans, I think that's worrisome, and that's just in a spring training mind. That's not. Let's give them a few months and let's see what they do. Another thing I might be concerned about too is that Jason Castro does not do well on the Astros or the other team. I don't know why he's back in the Star, but
he's back there to play. Oh, stop! He's there to play 25% of the game, so Martin can take a break.
That guy needs to go sell some popcorn.
Oh my God. He needs to join Luke Gregerson in the pro shop.
Exactly. They can run it together. They're best friends.
Are people sleeping on how big a boost Yordan Alvarez is going to be to this team if healthy?
Oh yeah. You don't. I mean, if he's healthy, he could absolutely be that guy. He's a bomber again. He's going to be jacking out, and then they're working him out at first base now. So. I mean, I don't know how athletic he is as far as fielding, but yeah, it's be great to have a real.
As we learned though in the movie Moneyball, playing first base is not very hard.
It is the most difficult thing you can do.
It's the moon.
But yeah, it's the moon jam. But yeah, no, I think just interesting to see how physical we can be out there. But having that dedicated DH is awesome, man. I mean, and he's exciting to watch. He's fun to watch, and he gets those guys going too. So I think it's great. I think glad to have him back.
So I would, if I were to do picks, I have them, as the second best team in the American League. Do I have them too high? Do I have them too low?
I think that you have them maybe a little bit high this year. I'll say this year. And I mean maybe they're the third or the fourth best team in the American League. Not to say that they can't get on a run and that's baseball, right? They can take, for all you Astros fans out there, don't come after me. But I think that they are, like I said, there's a lot of experience that needs to happen, and in some of these younger guys, this could be like I said, let's talk about Christian Javier. This could be a really great season for him to have a full stretch of a season and get some experience, and then come back next year and they're the best team in the American League.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Let's get a little experience in there.
So in my mind, I have it Yankees, Astros. Who do you have ahead of the Astros? I'm assuming you have the Yankees as number one in the AL.
Yeah, I mean, I got the Yankees. There's a lot going on in Chicago that kind of worries me.
Sure.
And they're always there, maybe because our cousin is a fan. Our cousins are fans. Maybe that's why it worries me. But there's a lot going on there that you can't really ignore. And I'm not saying that they're the spot, but there should be they're contenders. And then there's just I'm sorry, I'm totally just drawing a blank right now. But I mean, there's
just take a breath.
Yeah, thanks.
And after you do Chicago, I'll go to my next. So you did Chicago to my next question. All right. So do you have them winning the AL West? And if you do, who is second place?
I do have them winning the AL West, and then those pesky A's will be right nipping at our heels. They're never going to go away. And it's so annoying.
I have A's, Angels, and I'm not sure there's anybody above 500. All right, well, he is Timothy Jetchins. He's going to be one of the guys riding shotgun on the Go Astros segment. Tim, we're going to have you back on in just a couple of weeks right before opening day.
Sounds great, man. I'm excited to be it. And by then I'll have my new studio all set up.
Yeah, I love you guys. He literally was packing right before and immediately after this segment. So
we're making a
move. And actually one thing, you and I are going to be heading out to see the Albuquerque Isotopes. What are you excited about when we get out there in June?
Mostly the chili. No, I'm just kidding. I'm excited about watching some baseball. I haven't been, able to go into a lot of the parks because of my old job and everything. So getting out there and actually seeing some different types of baseball. This is a team that my fiance's family has followed for a long, long time. So I'm excited about that and getting to see the park they talk about a lot and just spending some hanging out with you and watching some baseball, man. That's a great time.
Let's Get To presents Goodwood, knocking around the majors with Andy Tomchesson.
We are jumping into Goodwood with Andy Tomchesson. Andy, top of the inning to you, as this is our St. Patrick's Day show. Nothing?
That was just for the people on the YouTube channel. Guess you better watch.
Are you a celebrator of St. Patrick's Day? Do you green beer or do you actually like Guinness? What do you do when it's time for this day?
I'm Polish, so I have to be reminded constantly that it's, different days. And then I eat sausage because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Probably won't do any green beer this year. Still, despite our wonderful governor in this state telling us everything's great, still not buying it. So I will probably be in the house. Maybe I'll kiss a stone in my yard and pretend it has Marty in it.
How come we don't celebrate St. Stanislaus Day, to celebrate our my other half of my lineage?
Racism.
Racism. Hey, so before we jump into the topic at hand, I don't know if you saw the message that in true Dallas logic, the Texas Rangers are going to allow a full capacity for their 2 exhibition games their season opener before moving to a socially distanced limited capacity with game number 2. Please explain to me the logic of acknowledging it's dangerous but being open anyway.
All right, so the season opener, great. And those games generally sell out anyway if your fans care at all about your team. The next game, game 2, is usually the worst attended game of the season. So, okay, I guess they are trying to get back to normal in only a way that Arlington could, by inviting as many people as possible to jam inside that Home Depot Costco hybrid that they call a stadium. And then later on, after you've caught the Rona, then you can socially distance. Because we're only selling tickets anyway, because nobody likes a stupid stadium, and our team is going to blow.
They are going to blow. We had Tim on right before you, and we think most of the AL West will be sub 500 this year. He has the A's in second. I have the Angels in second. Do you have it Astros and who else for the AL West?
No, I think the A's and the Angels are interchangeable. I think the Angels still have an issue with pitching. They've got a very impressive offensive lineup if everybody stays healthy, which, to be fair, Ohtani, Trout, they've had several guys who have had trouble staying healthy. Upton, over the course of the last couple of years. They still don't have any pitching in their organization. So even if their pitching they had last year progresses this year, that might get them to 500, maybe a couple of games over. The A's certainly took a step back, but I think, as much as I like to poke fun at Billy Beane and his general weirdness, he does know how to construct a roster. And I always expect them to be a little bit better than the prognosticators tend to think they're going to be. So I still think the Astros win the division by double digits. Of course, I said that last year, and
I think last year's weird year. I think the playoffs showed out that if that was a 162 game season, they probably do win that going away. I mean, the fact is they would have caught the A's lead if you factor in that 4-game playoff series.
Right. But the Mariners and I think it should be said, the Mariners and especially the Rangers, this needs to be said, are still trash.
And I think the Mariners are better than the Rangers. I think that they've got glimmers in their young players, even though they now have to rush one up onto the field. Let's talk a little bit about what you love to do. How many of the spring training Astros games have you watched this year?
I got to see part of one because it was on MLB TV, and only because I have a Comcast account in my office and I was here. I mean, I might have saw part of an inning because nothing else is on television in 2021.
I want to go back to the pandemic, or like it's over, Governor Abbott. I want to go back to the beginning of it. And we talked about on the show how Major League Baseball had a chance to really be the thing it had been through so much of this country's history. And one of the ways it should have done that was by making the game more accessible. And then speaking to the Hitter Sports, who is a big fan of our show, he outlined for me in preparation the 6 or 7 different types of providers he has to have to watch every Yankee game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about why Major League Baseball refuses to let people easily access their product.
Is one of the devices that the hitter need is a VPN master?
I mean, well, let's say legal.
Are we only talking about the legal
ways to watch? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess I'm surprised he didn't throw I could use the Astro center field camera as a joke. That'd have been funny.
Sure.
I didn't talk to him about that.
That would have been appropriate.
Yeah. But before you jump in, let's also look at my situation. I live in Austin, Texas. If I get the MLB Network subscription, I am out of market for both the Astros and the Rangers. I can get neither.
It could be worse. You could live in Iowa. Do you know about Iowa?
I don't. I know Iowa is where James T. Kirk is from, and
right.
Field of Dreams took place.
Does Iowa have any major league teams?
They do not.
No, but they're in the territory of 6 different teams: the Cubs, the White Sox, the Brewers, the Twins, the Cardinals, and the Royals. Which means if you're a fan of any of those teams, you can't watch them unless they're broadcast on some sort of local TV. You can't buy the MLB product, MLB TV or MLB.com, MLBTV.com. You can't buy that product and actually watch a team that you like. It's mind numbing. And it harkens back to the days, in general, baseball owners are Luddites, with a couple of exceptions. They don't like technology. They fear anything that isn't a ticket sale because they can control ticket sales. And it has never, ever changed.
Yeah.
The map currently of the territory restrictions was last done in 1993. We've expanded baseball teams since then.
Yeah.
So you have a state like Nebraska, which is very close to Colorado, which is not in Colorado's territory because Colorado's territory didn't exist when they last wrote the rules. It's like many things with Major League Baseball where unless a Yankees owner or a Dodgers owner has a problem with it, nothing's ever going to happen because they don't see a problem because fans come and go. They're not important to us. In the meantime, somebody is still showing up to the Cardinal Stadium and buying tickets. So everything must be great. That's in the middle of the country. Who even cares about that? Milwaukee could afford to build a new stadium a few years ago. They must be doing wonderful.
And it's interesting that you even bring up the Yankee point because it seems like what they've done then is they've pivoted their brand to make it harder on their fans to see them by creating all these pocket deals. It does remind me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but even the NFL has relaxed their very old school blackout rules where if you don't have a sellout in your area, isn't that how it used to be? If you don't have a sellout in your city, right, don't get it on.
So, again, growing up in Houston, Texas, this was every Thursday you had to find out from the paper if the game was sold out for Sunday so it could be on TV. And that's how it didn't matter if it sold out on Friday or Saturday. And it was a big deal when a local business or more likely, I think KPRC, the NBC affiliate at that point, was carrying the AFC games. So they would buy the last 5,000 tickets because they would make more money on the ad revenue than it cost for those tickets.
It is so shady.
Absolutely. But the NFL, which is, despite what Fox News will tell you, is continuing to grow in popularity, put a moratorium on these blackout rules in 2015. And it's a 1-year moratorium, but it's been for the last 6 years that they have not elected to put the blackouts back in place. Because the reality is the way you grow the fan base in a world where everybody has a 65-inch television and high def 1080p or 1080i, at least, if not 4K broadcast coming in their homes, is to make it available and make it easy to get to. And MLB has not learned that lesson ever. And it's just bizarre to me because it's the same reason that it was so hard to get a franchise in Washington, D.C., which is a large media market, to keep Peter Angelos happy in Baltimore. And we can't give up the territory. The territory has become this thing that is outlived its usefulness, frankly. But it's one of the historical things that baseball continues to rely on to mask either their lack of desire or their unwillingness to change bad decisions that no longer make sense in our current world. And it's a sport that is desperately seeking fans and trying to engage younger fan bases. They need to realize that people that want to watch baseball games are stealing those baseball games off of MLB streams, off of Reddit. I can watch any game I want to, no matter what territory I'm in. But if you want me to do it legally, to the hitter's point, I have to move out of the city that I live in, move out of the state of Texas, because Texas and Louisiana and parts of Arkansas and Oklahoma are all Astros and Rangers territory. El Paso, which is closer to the Diamondback Stadium than it is to Houston, is Astros territory. So for me to be able to legally watch Astros home games without a cable subscription, I would have to move to New Mexico, but the northwest part of it. I'm looking at the map right now. Northwest part of New Mexico, or possibly Mississippi if I get really close to the Alabama border.
I think about this stuff, and it reminds me of the DC Comics joke I've made years ago before the Wonder Woman film came out. And it was like, in this analogy, DC Comics is Major League Baseball. And they're like, I don't think we can make Wonder Woman work. And the NFL is Major League Baseball going, Talking Raccoon, bring it on. The NFL's putting games on Nickelodeon. That's not my bag. It's probably not your bag, but it might be like your kid's bag. And yet the MLB is going off of, like you said, 25, 28-year-old maps. Doesn't it just make sense to even raise the price of MLB of the MLB streaming service a little bit and just say, hey, if you're willing to pay me $150 a year, here's all the baseball you can handle?
Sure, but they're still tied to the cable TV model. And they seem to ignore the fact that droves of people are going away from the cable TV model. Now, I don't think it's any, initially, yes, right now, cutting the cord, which really started a decade ago, will save you some money. Eventually, you're going to end up spending that same money.
Sure.
It's even more difficult to watch the things you want to watch. I have no desire to go back to Comcast or to go back to DirecTV and have a satellite dish on the top of my roof to watch any sports. But what I would like is the ability to open up my iPad and see an Astros game no matter where I am in the world. And in 2021, I should be able to do that because if I am in Iowa, I'm not buying a ticket to Minute Maid Park anyway. But likely, if I'm sitting at home and it's rainy and I don't want to drive, I'm not buying a ticket to the game anyway. In the middle of a pandemic, I'm not buying a ticket to the game anyway, but I will pay them something to allow me to watch it. And that's where this failing continues to happen because you have people all over the country. Montana is in Seattle Mariners territory. The entire state of Montana. You have to drive through a mountain range to buy a ticket to go to the game. It is I believe it's like a 23-mile drive because of having to wind through the mountains. It may be a little bit off on the hours, but it's arduous.
Yeah.
There are people who die of dysentery making this trip. Oregon Trail reference.
Yeah. And again, and then you have the Hitter Sports with his Excel sheet going, well, am I on Hulu, YouTube, or blah, 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 blah today? It does seem like, again, they could have used this opportunity in the pandemic when people couldn't go anywhere anyway to make it easier. I wonder if, looking in the looking glass, right? I think you and I maybe 5 years ago would have thought that a standalone HBO subscription never would have happened because of how ingrained that was in your cable. Do you see eventually sports, ESPN, or the individual leagues kind of moving into the 21st century when it comes to how we're consuming this stuff?
I do, but I think, again, our problem, baseball is going to be, MLB is going to be the last organization to do it. I think the NFL is almost there. I think with the NFL network, but there will always be a need for a local broadcast option. And even in the NFL's example, because I think they do it best of the four major sports, all the games are broadcast. All the games are on cable TV. All the games are on ESPN or somewhere. But every game that's on a national network, if you don't get it, if you don't subscribe to cable, is available in simulcast on a local network. That's part of their deal. So they figured that out. You're making your product, again, accessible to the masses. And that's true of every market. There's no restrictions. There's no TV contracts that get in the way of that. But baseball can't take two steps without tripping over their own feet. I think the NBA, I'm not a big fan right now, but they're set up to do that. And I think you're going to see the NFL probably leading the way. The NBA will be not far behind. Hockey will adopt that model before Major League Baseball does, because Major League Baseball still has somebody believing that I'm in New Orleans, I'm going to drive to Houston to watch a baseball game rather than watch it on TV because it's not available on TV. That doesn't make it, it's not real. It's not real anymore. And it never really was, but you were so protective of the gate. The gate shouldn't be the main driver anymore because the gate isn't 50% of the revenue a team brings in.
Yeah, that is the interesting part about it is they're still leaning towards this slimmest percentage of their, not slimmest, but one of the slimmer parts of their of their revenue stream. One would think TV rights and probably even merchandise would be equal or more than.
Well, I tell you how valuable ticket sales are. It doesn't make 50% of our revenue for most of the teams, and teams who are building new stadiums. The most recent example is the Rangers, as we talked about at the opening, built a stadium that is, I think, 8 to 10,000 seats smaller than the stadium they just moved out of, because you can charge a premium for the people who can't afford tickets. In the meantime, Joe Sixpack wants to take his wife and kids, and they talk about the average price of going to a game is now something like $400 to $500. Most families can't do that. The recession we're about to enter that nobody wants to talk about, a lot of families aren't going to be able to do that. But what I can afford is $150 a year to have baseball streaming, all the baseball streaming into my home. And everybody can watch it, and I can be a fan. And if you want to look at a great example of how that works, look at the Atlanta Braves from 1981, really, till they stopped broadcasting on the superstation, WTBS. They had a national following. You couldn't go to their game. I wasn't going to go to a game from Houston to Atlanta, sure, but I could and still can name Ryan Plesko and Chipper Jones and Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux and most of that team, David Justice, because they were on all the time. And that was probably the height of baseball popularity. So that's the example. You've shown it can work. The Atlanta Braves made a lot of money from that deal. Why can't other teams be allowed to do that? And why doesn't Major League Baseball, which is a whole other conversation, have a unified television contract that guarantees that you can have the products you want to buy, no matter where you sit?
That part will be a topic for another episode. Before we wrap up, I do want to talk a little bit about COVID. I mean, it's over in Texas, so we're excited.
Yeah, we stopped having it.
Yeah, it's over. It's done. Looking at where we're going, where we're progressing vaccine-wise, now they're saying, and it seems like the numbers back it up, that we might have a vaccine for everyone by the end of May. When do you feel like it's going to feel normal at a major league level to really have a full-on sold-out stadium? And I don't mean prematurely like what the Rangers are doing.
Realistically, if you can get the vaccine, and if what the Biden administration says is true, and I think the CDC is now backed up that they think, based on what they're seeing, it would work, that if you can have 300 million doses, realistically, every person in the country 16 years or older who would have the availability to have one. I think we get midsummer, and certainly by the time the playoffs roll around, assuming there's no work stoppage, reference to last episode.
Love your Marvel reference to that little asterisk down there.
That's right.
See last week
too. But I think once you get to that point, I think that you're back to normal. I also see some sports leagues, and maybe Major League Baseball is one of these, asking people at some point, if the numbers don't continue to go down or if they start to plateau a little bit, requiring proof of vaccination to enter the stadium, which I think is fair. It's not a need to attend a sporting event. It's a desire to attend a sporting event, and it's superfluous in a lot of ways. But if I want to go, that's the price of admission, in addition to the ridiculously overpriced ticket. So I think that's fair. I do see leagues getting to that point, possibly, especially in markets like California and New York, where it's a little bit more concerned than we are in the Wild West down here, where, we'll be normal next week because no COVID, we got rid of it.
Yeah. And you know what, honestly, I would have no problem flashing that. This is a situation where public health is, people compare the mask to the seatbelt, and they're so different in every single way. I guess as we get ready to get, we have another episode next week. What are you looking for coming out of spring training and stuff for baseball as we kind of progress a little closer to the opening?
Quiet. I think you've got a couple of free agents that are big signings or potentially big signings. Yasiel Puig being primary among those. Somebody's going to pick him up at some point, but there's not a lot going on right now. And I think, and again, huge caveat, if baseball's smart. If baseball's smart, and it's a giant if, you let the season start. You don't need a giant production to make the season start. What will help be a giant production is you just pull off games and try to pull them off with no interruptions or limited interruptions, where you don't have a situation like last year where the Cardinals have to take 2 weeks off, or the Marlins decide that whatever the protocols are, we don't have to do them because Florida. And I can't even make that joke anymore because I live in Texas, where you're not trying to make up games and doing 7-inning double headers or trying to play 3 games in a 2-day span or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They need normalcy. Normalcy will help everything. They still have this giant thing on the horizon. And again, if baseball's smart, they don't need horrible press on the front end of it when they know there's going to be horrible press on the back end of it.
Exactly. Well put. He is Andy Tom Chesson. Andy, that was some good wood.
Let's Get To presents This Just In, news from around the baseball diamond.
So we're excited to welcome back to Let's Get To David Schmoll. He is with the O'Fallon Hoots, of which I have rocked many items of their gear. But on spoiler alert, will be in my Star Wars episode.
There we go.
But now you're the commissioner, I guess, of the CarShield Collegiate League. Tell me a little bit about why you decided to carry the pod forward from what you guys did in 2020.
I think the pod really showcased to us that there is a need and there was a desire from the players to have another summer collegiate league in St. Louis, carry on that pod style. Guys can stay at home and they can play at a top quality facility here in O'Fallon. And we really found that the response that we got from the players was so strong. And obviously with this being a baseball rich community.
Yeah.
Being able to add another 45 dates onto our 30 dates that we have for the Prospect League already, it's just going to make for a summer of baseball at the ballpark. Really, it fits in with our mission as operators of CarShield Field to make this a baseball destination in the Midwest.
So before we get to the who, let's talk about the when. So what I've loved about this is that I had a blast with you guys and I get to see it continue. I had a blast in Normal with the Colonels Collegiate League. I get to see it continue. I had a blast at the Wild West League in Portland, Oregon, and now it's also continuing. Right. How are you balancing putting that schedule together? Are we still talking double headers while also keeping your Prospect League commitments with the O'Fallon Hoots?
Yeah, so every CarShield Collegiate League game will be a doubleheader. And then basically, whenever the Hoots go out of town, we've got CarShield games coming in. So there's none of the battling for weekends, all of that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we want to have a balanced schedule with, balanced Hoots and CarShield games on the weekends. So that way our fans who can only come on Fridays can really get a full feel of everything that we have going on baseball-wise in O'Fallon. But from a scheduling standpoint, it does make it a lot easier and a lot less so dependent on the Prospect League schedule. It makes it a lot easier to do that. And I think a lot of other communities have seen that as well, that this can be a supplement if you have the resources locally. I think that's something that's really unique to us in O'Fallon, is just with St. Louis being such a hotbed of high quality baseball talent, it does provide us with that opportunity. 4 teams, I think 4 teams could be a minimum as we look forward, but I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, especially from a scheduling standpoint. Last summer was crazy enough. I don't know if I'm ready to do 6 again.
Well, and let's talk about this year, because now last year what you guys did, and again, I'll give the same kudos to my connection, Matt Durkin in Normal, or out in Portland. You all saw a need, and I'm not sure if you realize outside of your community how much you helped feed that need for other people. The idea that I got to go up and see a game when I thought I wasn't going to get to really made 2020 at least survivable for me. But you guys really pulled stuff, pardon my French, out of your rear ends. Now you've got forethought. So let's talk about some of these team identities that we have coming in, because I seen the logos and there's a couple on there that I'm like, can't wait for gear. So who do we have playing?
So we've got we custom made 3 teams, and then we had one existing organization that put a team in. So the Adidas Athletics were that team that came in fully branded. So there wasn't that extra creativity in our front office putting that stuff together. So those guys will be a high quality team that'll be going up against a team like the T-Ravs. The T-Ravs being toasted ravioli, for those not familiar with the St. Louis delicacy, which is actually a fried ravioli. And the guy that we ended up having designed that logo, he just ran with it and made him angry. And we went through a couple of different iterations of it and finally settled on the one that we have now. And it's just a fun logo. I think that's, as we go through these, that was really our objective. And really our objective and kind of a motto we've kind of carried on in the office is let's have fun in 2021. Everything that we're doing, let's just have fun doing it. So, we got the T-Ravs, and then we did the rubber chickens, which the rubber chickens is actually kind of just a joke in our office. We have all these rubber chickens in the office, and we use it as a sales team. Whenever we make a sale, we squeeze the rubber chicken. And so we just had them lying around, and we were getting ready to do a video for our staff to say what names they wanted to have the teams named. And we were looking for props, and our director of marketing was like, rubber chickens, I have one. Let's use that. And so we're like, okay, that sounds great, which is how the shredded cheese came to be.
I love the shredded cheese logo because it's got that Fort Myers Mighty Muscle look of just So tell me a little bit about that one.
So originally I was going to pitch the Fighting Soy. The soybean being the state crop of the state of Missouri. I have a really good friend of mine who's allergic to soy, so I thought that I could chirp him in that video. But I didn't have a prop, and everybody else had a prop. And I had brought my lunch that day, and I had a bag of shredded cheese. And that is how that's where the shredded cheese came from. I didn't have a prop, and I had a bag of shredded cheese, and someone just goes, oh man, that could be a really cool play on words, like shredded cheese and shredded cheese. And that's what we did in the video. And we had a couple of other names in the office, all kind of on that same kind of fun mantra, but the shredded cheese and the rubber chickens were fan voted, and T-Ravs came in as a fan nomination. And those 3, when we sent those out to get logos done and they came back, we were so excited. And so being able to launch those names and see the response, I mean, the response has been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal.
David, are you a Spider-Man fan?
I'm not.
Okay, so the story of Spider-Man, which is, one of the maybe top 5 or 6 most iconic superhero characters, is Stan Lee saw a spider on the wall and he had seen a Superman comic and said, Spider-Man. That's shredded cheese. You realize that, right?
100%. I am Stan Lee.
When can we start to see gear for sale? You can see around me, I am a gearhead. When can I get my own T-Ravs t-shirt or whatever?
Gear's up online right now on our merchandise store. It is ready to go. We've got game hats for all 3 teams, all 3 custom-made teams, and then t-shirts for all 3 custom teams as well.
Well, you might as well squeak the rubber chicken because you just made a sale. Real quick, tell everybody where we can find both the O'Fallon Hoots and the CarShield Collegiate League.
All of that information is online at o'fallonhoots.com. And we have 2 Facebook pages, one for the O'Fallon Hoots and one just for the CarShield Collegiate League. We are super excited about this summer. Like you mentioned, last summer, not that much fun for a lot of folks. And that's why this summer, hey, let's just have some fun in 2021.
Well, I want to tell you, I've never enjoyed 3 rain delays more than I did when I was at the CarShield Collegiate League last year. He is David Schmoll. He is with the O'Fallon Hoots. David, thanks so much for being on Let's Get To, and we'll talk to you a little bit later on in the season.
Thanks, James.
And now, on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, James Christopher.
That does wrap up our show. Thanks so much for staying with us. And I do want to, again, kind of call attention to what I'm wearing, some really cool St. Patrick's Day merch, and also what I got Jessica to wear for, again, the holiest day of the year, according to my mother. So again, I'm wearing the Chicago Dogs St. Patrick's Day ball cap. I'm wearing a shirt that says top of the inning to you from the Irish American Baseball Society. I am a member. You should join too. And we also have, for Jessica to wear, the Peoria Chiefs St. Patrick's Day hat that comes with the shamrock on the side. And again, that's super cute. Got to pull the ponytail thing through. And then we also have from the Savannah Bananas. It's actually my second or third year having it. They still sell it, so I recommend checking it out. But one of my favorite shirts, period, and that is the Savannah Bananas St. Patrick's Day t-shirt. And now, some birthday reflections. Changing hats again. When I say I wear different hats on this show, I mean it. Again, turning 45 tomorrow, and it's been a ride so far, and hopefully I still have a lot of road through the windshield. I know there's probably more through the rear view, and that's life, and that's an important thing we all have to do and come to terms with. When I think about how lucky I am, I spoke before about things I've accomplished. Military, promoted pretty early, building a film company out of nothing, building a film festival out of nothing. And it's easy to help get carried up a hill and then talk about what I climbed. And you don't climb anything by yourself, and you don't accomplish things without having good people in your life. And I think when I think about the legacy of what my first 45 years has been, it has been some of the best people in my life. And, I always want to name people. I want to give shout outs, and I know that I'm always going to mess things up and forget some people that absolutely should be included. And when I think about, when I think about the show, right? If I look at the Let's Get To life, I couldn't have done it without Andy, Scott, or Tim, who do way more behind the scenes than anybody can possibly imagine. I couldn't have grown the show as far as I have without the hitter sports, who I've never met. But the guy has been so generous with helping people get past the fact that I'm an Astros fan and actually listen to what I have to say, both about baseball and about the Astros. I couldn't have done that without him, or other people on social media like Eric the Peanut Guy, or Hardy the Hat Guy, or Spencer, or Paul Caputo, who have helped grow our show. And I couldn't have done the show. Andrew Nelson, who I've met one time, met him on Twitter, became a collaborator. Jess Canaster stumbled into his booth. So for Let's Get To grow, I couldn't have done that without anybody, without any of those people, and so many more. And everybody that, I wish people knew that anytime someone likes or shares, it means, I recognize it as a thank you needs to be given. When I think about the other parts of my life, I think about Jason Tostevin and Cedric Thomas Smith and Mike Donis and Carla Rodriguez and Lucas Hassel and so many other people in my life that have supported me, particularly in the film side of things and with the festival. And I mentioned those 4 or 5 guys because counting is hard. I'm 45, everybody. The mind's the first thing to go. But I mentioned those guys first because I felt like in my late 30s into my 40s, those are the most important male relationships that I've ever had. And it does mean so much to have brothers like that, and I'm obviously very close to my brother Tim, but to have other brothers that maybe don't share blood but share soul. And I think that is what matters even more. I'm fortunate because I have a beautiful, smart, and amazing and strong, and I even hate that I put beautiful first because you're not supposed to do that, and I get why. Daughter in Jordan, who is raising, I think, 2 of the most incredible kids I've ever seen grown up in Braxton and Kennedy. So, on the one hand, I think being a 45-year-old grandfather, I think when it started, when I was going to be a 42-year-old grandfather, I was like everybody else. I was scared. I was worried. But now it's like I'm 45 and I can do stuff with them, and they're great kids. Like I'm loving that opportunity. And I think the other thing that I can't thank enough, first of all, it's been an incredibly awesome birthday week that Jessica has been planned planning for months. She actually wrapped all the presents about a month before it started and put them on the fireplace so I'd have to look at them. My wife, Jessica, has been the most incredible partner anybody can ask for. And I often wish that I would have met her earlier and we could have started this journey earlier. And I know that that's not, we shouldn't do that because things are different and things end up, you know, things happen the way they're supposed to happen. She's a big things happen for a reason person, but she is my light, my life. She is everything I need in this world. I don't actually want to spend very much time with anyone else but her. And I think after 20 and a half now years of marriage, that's the best gift that any guy could ask for. So I love you, Jessica. And again, the fact that this show exists has as much to do with you encouraging me never to give up on anything as anything else. So that is our show. I hope you have a great week. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. Those of you who are on spring break, there's still a virus out there. Put a mask on. But just try to enjoy the fact that it seems like things are turning towards the positive. So I will say again, stay safe, stay sane, top of the inning to you, and let's get to.